everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Seongdong DIY. Today we are going to be making these beautiful carnations for Parents' Day. So please follow along and we will show you the materials you need for today's activity. Okay, so for materials, the first thing you are going to need is tissue paper. That's not the stuff you use in the bathroom or to blow your nose. This paper is called tissue paper. It's a really thin, really light paper. It's really delicate, so you have to be careful with it. So our size paper is an A4, so we need 3 of these A4 papers. If your tissue paper is bigger, don't worry, I'll tell you how big, how much you need for later. But if it is A4, you need 3 pieces per flower. You will also need a pipe cleaner. This here is called a pipe cleaner. It's got a wire in the middle and it's kind of fuzzy on the outside. It's a pipe cleaner. You will also need a pencil and a pair of scissors so that you can trace your circle and cut it out. To trace your circle, you're going to need something that is a circle like my tape here. So if this is actually a really great size here. So if you have a tape that's about this size, this is really great for cutting out your circles. You can also use like the bottom of my pencil case as a circle. So anything that's round like this that you can use to trace around and get the right size for your flowers. The next thing you will need is a binder clip or a paper clip. It's not required, but it's going to make it a lot easier for you to use. So if you have one of these, it's really helpful. So those are the required materials. The next stuff is optional. You can use it or you don't have to. So as you can see on my example here, this is a little different from this, right? This is a little more fuzzy, whereas this is more smooth and it looks a little more like a real flower. So to make it look like that, you can use some floral tape. Once again, you don't have to, this will look just fine, but this is if you want to, you can add floral tape to it. Also, if you look on the edges of it, it's not all the same color in my example. So you can use some markers to color the edges to make it look a little prettier. You don't have to. Once again, this is optional. And the last thing, you're going to be poking holes in your paper. So to poke your hole, you can use something like this if you have it, or you can use just a safety pin or something like that. But please be careful with this. You don't want to hurt yourself. So if you are at home, make sure somebody's with you helping you out. You also might want to use something like this, like a cleaning sponge. That way you have something safe to stab into so you don't accidentally hit your hand or you don't damage your table. So those are our materials for today. Let's get started. Okay, so the first step, we're going to take our 3 pieces of tissue paper and we're going to fold them. So these papers are very thin and very delicate, so please be careful as you're working with them. You don't want to rip your paper. So we're going to just fold this in half first. So from this corner to this corner, just fold it in half. It's okay if it's not perfect because you are going to be cutting off a lot of it. So don't worry if it's not a perfect lineup. Just try to get it as neat as you can. So you fold it in half once and you're going to do that one more time. Great. And so like I said earlier, I'm going to use my tape to cut out my circle. This is about 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters wide. So that's the perfect size for your flower. So if you can find a circle that's about 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters wide, that's going to be the best for you. And as you can see, that's actually quite small compared to how much paper I have left. So if you have a different size paper that you're working with other than the A4, you just want to make sure you can cut out 12 circles that are 3 inches by 7.5 centimeters wide. Great. So I'm going to trace this first. Nice and simple. There we go. So we've got our circle and now we just need to cut it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting. And then before I get too far, I'm actually going to put the binder clip on now because I want to make sure that those circles stay together. So I'm just going to clip that part that I already cut and close the binder clip. And that way those circles aren't going anywhere. They're always going to stay lined up with each other. And that's going to be really helpful for later so that we're not messing up our design. And then you're just going to continue cutting around the circle. I recommend cutting right on top of or slightly inside of the pencil marks because you don't want those pencil marks on your final part. So it's okay if you cut off a little bit more. If it ends up a little smaller than the circle you drew, it's going to be better in the end because you won't have pencil marks all over your flower. Great. A little pointed. Okay, great. So now we've got our circles, and you want to keep this binder clip on there until you are ready to move on to the next step. So now, like I said, this step is optional. You don't have to. It'll look just fine if you do this, but I like when the flower has a little bit of a different color on the edge. I think it looks a little more exciting, and it helps you see all of these little pieces a little better. So for the pink one, I just used a little darker of a pink. For this red one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to use a little darker of a red. So I'm going to take this red right here, and I'm going to draw on the edges. This part might get a little messy. You might get this all over your hands. Try to be careful, but it's okay if you get it on your hands. You just have to wash it off afterwards. So you're going to want to squeeze as tight as you can right at the edge. And then you're going to just take the side of your marker and color the side of the paper. Change of plans. The red didn't show up very well, so I'm actually going to use this brown color instead. I'm just going to squeeze it and use the side of the marker to color in the edges. Yeah, that's better. Now for this part, it is okay if your edges aren't perfect because the more messy it is, the more real it's going to look because nature is not perfect. A real flower is not going to come out looking like straight, perfect lines. They're going to have a little bit of difference as you go around the circle. So don't worry about making it perfect. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, like I said earlier, I did not do a perfect circle. It looks better this way. It looks a little strange right now, but the messier it is, the more real it's going to look when you finish your flower. So don't worry about making it perfect. I'm going to put my marker away. Okay, great. So now we need to move on to the next step. And the next step is you're going to be adding your pipe cleaner to your flower to make it into a flower shape. So for this, you are going to need to have a hole to put the pipe cleaner into. Like I said before, you can use a pin, you can use if you have one of these, you can use one of these. There is also a little bit of a wire inside the pipe cleaner. So if you have nothing else, you can use this to make the hole, but it's not as easy. Please, if you're doing this part, be very, very careful. Ask somebody for help. Make sure somebody's looking after you. So I'm going to use that little sponge I had earlier. I'm going to put this on top. You want to make 2 holes around the middle of your paper, but you don't want it right in the middle. You want it kind of on either side of the middle because the pipe cleaner is going to go through twice. So you need 2 holes. So I'm going to just kind of find the middle of the paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to stab my first hole. And then a little bit across from that on the other side of the middle, I'm going to stab my second hole. So now you've got 2 holes in your paper. And you're going to put your pipe cleaner through those 2 holes. So I'm going to put it in through one. Then you're going to bend the pipe cleaner like that. So you have like a little loop. And that end is going to come back through the second hole. So now you've got 2 parts sticking out of the bottom and a little part on the top. So you want to squeeze in the middle right here to make it as small as possible. So now that you've got this in the middle, the flowers are not going to move, so you can take off that binder clip and you can get rid of it, and that's fine. Underneath, you've got these two pieces, right? So you're going to just twist them together so that they combine into one piece. Twist it together, and there you go. So it's all one piece coming out the bottom of the flower. Great, so now we've got this. It kind of looks like a really flat tulip, right? So we're going to move on to the next step. So for the next step, you're going to grab one piece at a time. So make sure you separate all the others out. You just want the top layer. You're going to hold it kind of like this. So you're going to hold all of these down as much as you can. And then you just want one piece sticking up. And it's pretty simple. You're just going to grab it and squeeze. And be careful not to pull too hard because, like I said, the tissue rips really easily. So you're just going to squeeze towards the middle and pinch. You want it to kind of look like this. You want that, and that's going to be the middle of the flower. And you're just going to do that same thing with all of the layers. So do one layer at a time. You pull it up. You keep the other ones held down, and you squeeze. And it looks really messy right now, but as you keep going, you're going to start to see this flower shape form. So I'm going to keep doing that same thing to all the layers. We're going to go into fast forward. So that's the last one. And right now you can see it's kind of squished up. Doesn't really look like a carnation. But now if you're going to take your hand like this and put it here in the middle and just spread your fingers out, you'll see the carnations start to form. Just like that. You're going to open it up a little bit. And there you go, that's your carnation. So that's all of these steps you have to do. That's how you're gonna make your carnation. But like I said, you can make some changes to it if you want. If this is too long for you, you can use a pair of wire cutters and cut it down to a different size. For this, scissors aren't gonna work very well because there is a wire inside of the pipe cleaner, so wire cutters are better, but please be careful with them. You can hurt yourself, so please be careful. Also, like I said, if you want to add the floral tape, you can add it on here. Floral tape sticks to itself, so you don't need to use any glue or anything. You can just wrap it all the way down and make the rest of your flower. So pop it into a vase like this. And if it's too long, you can also just bend like that. You don't have to cut anything off. So you can pop it into a vase, and there you go. You've got some beautiful flowers to give to somebody you love for Parents' Day. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed doing this. And please, if you decide to make this, send us a picture so we can put it up on our homepage. All right, thank you. Have a good day.